If reading was enough to make people fluent in English on its own, all of you guys watching this video right now would already be at an advanced level of English right now. The truth is, reading is really important for your overall fluency, but most of you guys are doing it completely wrong. In this video, I'll show you where most of you guys are messing up and what to do to fix it. If you're new here, welcome to ARC English. We help people go from intermediate to advanced in English much faster by working smarter and not harder. If you're still stuck at the intermediate levels of English, be sure to subscribe to this channel and we will help you get to the advanced level. Now, the first thing that most of you guys are just doing completely wrong is you have the wrong mindset, meaning that most of you guys think practicing your reading skills in English by itself is enough to see noticeable results or noticeable improvements in your English communication skills. And that is just not the case. Practicing your reading skills and reading things in English, it is important for improving your passive vocabulary and your recognition. But it's just one small piece of the puzzle. There are still many other pieces that you need to have it all come together to make you an articulate English speaker. Now, in order to solve this problem, you are going to need to learn how to read aloud. Now, reading aloud may seem like a small thing to do, but it actually makes all the difference in how good you can actually communicate in spoken English over long periods of time. Literally just making this one tweak to every time you read, you actually do it aloud instead of just doing it in your head. This is going to compound and show you real results over the span of the next months or years. You definitely will notice it because you're physically training your mouth to actually get repetitions and actually get exercise speaking and making the sounds of the English language. So if you read a lot and you come across a lot of common words, if you practice saying all of these common words aloud several times, hundreds of times, thousands of times, tens of thousands of times, then the next time when you get into a real conversation in the real world in English, it's going to feel much more natural to say something that you've already practiced saying thousands of times before. So the concept is very simple, and this doesn't even just apply to improving your English. This also can apply to things like learning how to shoot a basketball for the first time or learning how to play an instrument for the first time. Once you get many more repetitions, it just becomes natural. It just becomes second nature. And now the second problem that most of you guys are making is that you are reading material that does not correspond to your current level of English, meaning you're either reading material that is way too easy for you or way too hard for you. If you're reading material that is way too easy for you, it's not going to make a big difference, or you're not going to feel like you're actually making improvements and actually getting better. If you read material that is way too hard for you, then it will just be incredibly inefficient. You aren't going to understand most of what they're saying, or maybe around half of what they're saying. You're going to be looking up new words and expressions on Google every 2 seconds when you don't understand something. It's going to be very frustrating, and it's an incredibly inefficient way to study. You will waste a lot of time and you will not really see much result. Now, if you're wondering what material in English is at your current level when it comes to reading or even listening, it would simply be material where you can understand around 80% or more of what is being said. And then for the other 20% of the words or expressions that you do not understand, you can honestly just make an educated guess on what it means based on the context by which it is delivered. But what you need to know is that if you can understand or comprehend comfortably around 80% of what is being said, that is good material for you to practice reading or listening with, because you can fill in the blanks and you can actually guess and force yourself to think and understand the context of English conversations to guess what the other 20% of the words or expressions mean. Simply put, this is called the 80-20 rule or the Pareto principle, and it applies to many different things, not even just language learning. But if you actually apply the 80-20 rule to language learning, it is the most time efficient way to learn new expressions, learn new words, and learn how they are used in certain situations without having to waste your time looking up a new word or expression every 2 seconds when you're reading or listening to content that is just way too difficult for you to understand. So if you can apply this and read aloud when you practice reading, it really will translate into better speaking for you. And if you're curious what your current level of English is, we recently created an English level test, which will help you find out. So if you want to find out what your general level of English is, I'll leave a link to that test somewhere in the description or the pinned comment below. And the third problem that most of you guys are making would be reading irrelevant material. In other words, reading and practicing reading with English media and English material will actually feel pretty useless if you're not reading material that is actually applicable to your specific lifestyle. If you're reading a lot of material about quantum physics, but you will probably never have a conversation about quantum physics ever based on your profession or your particular lifestyle, then you should not waste your time reading this type of material or this type of media. It will be time not well spent. Another problem is some of you might not be sure what type of vocabulary or what type of media you should be using to practice. If you're not sure which subjects you should be reading about to really improve the English that you can actually use in the real world, what I would simply do is just audit your schedule. To audit your schedule, just be mindful about the types of interactions that you're having, ideally on a daily basis or a weekly basis. If every single day you go to the cafe and speak with the barista who is serving you your coffee, you can learn vocabulary that would be actually applicable to the types of conversations you may have with that person. If you go to the grocery store once per week and you want to be able to flawlessly be able to read and understand and identify everything in the store in English, then you can learn vocabulary based around that subject. If you wake up every morning in your bedroom and you are unable to label everything around you in your room and describe it, that's a sign that you should probably be reading or consuming media that will teach you the vocabulary around household items. Simply put, you just need to be mindful about your specific routines on a daily, weekly, or sometimes even monthly basis, and just be mindful about the different types of subjects you discuss and the different types of venues that you put yourself in. Essentially, what this does is it's going to concentrate where you're getting the most repetitions in terms of the subjects that you're learning, the subjects that you are actually reading aloud, and then the things that you're actually applying in your everyday life. If you get more repetitions around those things, you're actually going to end up sounding much more fluent than you actually are when you're speaking about subjects that you frequently speak about. And finally, as a bonus tip, this app helped me a lot. I'm not sponsored to talk about it, but it really helped me. And that is the app LingQ. Essentially, it just feeds you media in your target language that you're trying to learn. And you can simply find endless videos and endless articles and endless media at each different level of English. So at the A1 level, all the way up to the C2 level, you can find a ton of media to practice with that is most likely going to be at your current level of English. This skips the step of having to search for it manually, as everything can just be curated based around what you're interested in. And you can definitely find it there on the app LingQ. And also, you'll never have to research a word ever again, because on LingQ, with all the media and all the expressions and words, you can just click on it and it will automatically translate it back to your native language. So to recap, the three things that most of you guys are doing incorrectly. The first is thinking that reading by itself is enough to see significant results. That is not true, but what can get you results from reading is by reading aloud and getting repetitions of actually practicing your speaking when you read. The second mistake most of you guys make is reading material that is not at your current level of English, meaning it's either way too easy what you're reading or it's way too hard. And the solution to this is just to apply the 80-20 principle. You should be able to understand around 80% of what you're reading, and then you should be able to guess what the other 20% of the words or expressions mean, just based on how they're used. And then the third problem is simply just reading irrelevant material. As mentioned, reading will feel useless if you're not actually reading material that you can really apply to the real world. And the two solutions to find relevant material would be either just go on to LinQ and it can curate content based around your interests, or you can just audit your schedule and pay attention and be more mindful about the English terminology and the types of English conversations and interactions that you will realistically have every single day or every single week in the real world. Now, if you found this video valuable at all, be sure to like the video and comment down below what your current level of English is and where you're from in the world. I'm always very curious to know. And if you want to learn how to learn English from scratch in more intimate detail, be sure to watch the next video on the screen.